All right, welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going to be tackling a story that I think a lot of people are familiar with, at least on a basic level. We're talking about Cain and Abel.
Yeah, this one's a classic.
Definitely. And, our listener sent in a YouTube video, and it's from the Santo Espíritu de Dios channel.
Okay. And
that means Holy Spirit of God.
I see.
In English. And the video is called The Man Who Killed Cain and His Own Son, Tubal-Cain. It's actually the man who killed Cain and his own son, Tubal-Cain, Book of Jasher and Genesis.
Oh, okay. So they're pulling from some extra biblical sources too.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the things that makes this video so interesting. It's not just, rehashing the Sunday school version of Cain and Abel.
Right.
This video really digs into some thought-provoking stuff about Cain's descendants and how their legacy connects to like the whole of humanity's tendencies toward violence.
It's fascinating how it kind of uses that story as a foundational myth for human history. Like, it's not just about those two brothers, but about this inheritance of violence, this idea that their actions set a pattern for generations to come.
Right. So, the video kind of sets up this idea that Cain's descendants aren't just wandering nomads.
Mm-hmm.
They actually possess unique skills, innovations, but it seems like it comes at a cost.
Yeah, exactly. The video really emphasizes that sort of double-edged legacy.
Okay.
That they inherit. So on the one hand, you've got builders, inventors, people who are really pushing humanity forward.
Right.
But they're also prone to this restlessness, this violence. They're carrying this burden, this inner turmoil that stems from Cain's original sin.
So they're kind of like blessed and cursed at the same time.
Exactly. It's this really complex dynamic.
And it's not just vague implications, right? Like the video actually names some of these descendants and what they're known for.
It does. And one of the figures that really stood out to me was Tubal-Cain. He's described as this master metalworker. Like, the video credits him with forging tools from bronze and iron, pushing humanity forward technologically.
So he's kind of like a Prometheus figure, bringing fire to mankind.
Yeah, there are definitely parallels there. But the video also cleverly highlights how he makes both tools and weapons.
Oh, interesting.
So you see that duality of Cain's legacy right there.
Yeah.
That potential for creation and destruction all intertwined.
Okay, so we're talking about the dawn of civilization here. And already those seeds of conflict are being sown.
Right, from the beginning.
Yeah. And then there's this whole thing about Cain going blind. It seemed like a really specific detail. Is the video interpreting that literally, or is there sort of a deeper meaning there?
Yeah, no, the blindness is definitely symbolic.
Okay.
The video uses it to represent Cain's spiritual separation from God. It's not just a physical consequence, but a metaphorical one.
I see.
He's lost his way, unable to see the truth, kind of trapped in the darkness of his own actions.
So we're talking about like karma here?
In a way, yeah.
It's like a family curse playing out on a massive scale.
Yeah, and the video actually goes even further with that.
Okay.
They talk about how the land itself suffers under Cain's descendants.
Wow, that's interesting.
It becomes less fruitful, less hospitable. It's like they can't escape the stain of his sin, and it's impacting the world around them.
So their sin is literally poisoning the earth.
That's the idea the video seems to be putting forward, that there are these far-reaching consequences that go beyond just the individual.
Okay, that's a pretty bleak picture.
It's definitely a challenging idea.
And then we get to Lamech.
Yeah, one of Cain's descendants.
Right. And the video spends a lot of time talking about him and his two wives, Ada and Zillah.
Yeah, they're important figures in the narrative for sure.
Okay. But why even mention them? Seems like a lot of names to keep track of.
Well, Lamech is key because he represents this escalation of violence within Cain's lineage.
Okay, how so?
Well, he's not just struggling with his inheritance, he's actually boasting about killing a man.
Oh, wow.
And he claims that he deserves 77-fold vengeance, which is a huge jump from the 7-fold vengeance that was promised for Cain.
So it's like this cycle of violence is actually intensifying over time.
Exactly. It's not static. It's growing. It's spreading.
Wow. And what about his wives, Ada and Zillah?
Their sons represent different aspects of Cain's legacy. They embody that potential for good and bad that's swirling within this one family line.
Okay, so it's not a simple black and white situation.
Not at all. The video wants us to see the complexity of this inheritance, how it plays out in different ways.
So you've got like herding, music, and of course metalworking with Tubal-Cain.
Exactly. You see that tension between creation and destruction playing out even within this one family.
It sounds like they're setting up this idea that even within this cursed lineage, there's still the struggle between good and evil.
Yeah, it's a constant battle, and the video doesn't shy away from that.
And then there's this scene where Lamech is plagued by these terrifying prophetic dreams, and he actually seeks out the aged, blind Cain. It almost felt like a scene out of like a Greek tragedy.
Oh, definitely. It's one of the most dramatic moments in the video.
What's going on there? And how does it build suspense?
Well, Lamech is terrified by these dreams, and he wants answers.
Makes sense.
He wants to understand this darkness that seems to be engulfing him.
So he goes right to the source.
Exactly. And Cain, speaking from his own experience, confirms that they're all burdened by this inherited violence.
Oh, wow. So he's not offering any easy solutions.
No, it's a very stark message. He says that redemption is possible for those who choose righteousness, but he himself is trapped. He can't escape the consequences of his actions.
So he's basically confirming that this is a real thing, this curse, this legacy of violence. But he's also hinting that there might be a way out, like a glimmer of hope.
Exactly. It's this tantalizing possibility, this suggestion that choice still plays a role.
Okay, interesting.
But the video also shows how difficult it is to break free from those deeply ingrained patterns.
Because if I remember correctly, this encounter with Cain directly foreshadows Lamech's tragic fate.
It does. The video describes how Lamech accidentally kills Cain while they're out hunting together.
Oh, no.
And then, in a fit of rage, he kills his own son, Tubal-Cain.
Oh, wow. That's awful.
It's like the ultimate irony. He's seeking understanding from the source of the curse, and it leads to him repeating the very sin he's trying to escape.
And it's even more tragic because it was an accident. It wasn't intentional.
Exactly. It raises all these questions about fate and free will. Like, was he ever truly free to choose a different path?
That's heavy stuff.
It's a question the video leaves us to ponder. It's not offering easy answers. It's presenting this complex, multi-layered story and inviting us to wrestle with the implications.
And what about the wives' reactions? The video shows them grieving, but they also seem to be pushing Lamech away.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's like they see him as a danger, as a continuation of the very cycle he was trying to break.
Right, and I think the video is highlighting how even unintentional violence can have devastating consequences, and how it can perpetuate those cycles of pain and suffering. It's not just about intent, it's about accountability.
So we're left with this sense of hopelessness, this idea that the cycle of violence is almost impossible to break.
It can feel that way, for sure.
But then, the video introduces Noah, a descendant of Seth, Cain's brother.
Right.
And it's like they're offering a glimmer of hope, a different path.
Exactly. And that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive. We'll explore how Noah's lineage represents a break from Cain's legacy, a chance for humanity to start fresh.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued. Can't wait to see where this goes.
It's a fascinating turn in the story.
It's almost like by introducing Noah, the video shifts from this, localized family drama to the fate of all humanity.
Yeah, it really broadens the scope.
Before we get to Noah, though, there's one line from Lamech that really stuck with me. And I think it was, "I have slain a man to my wounding and a young man to my hurt."
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful line.
Super cryptic. And the video itself offers, multiple interpretations.
Right.
What did you make of it?
Well, I think that line is so fascinating because it operates on multiple levels. On the surface, some scholars believe it's Lamech confessing to 2 killings, perhaps trying to justify them as self-defense.
Okay.
But the video really pushes us to go deeper, to consider the symbolic weight of those words.
So what's the symbolic meaning then? It's not just about those physical deaths, right?
Right. The video suggests that Lamech could be talking about a spiritual wounding.
Okay.
He sees himself as both victim and perpetrator,
Oh, interesting.
caught in this cycle of violence that started with Cain.
Right.
He's hurt, but he also causes hurt. And that line about being avenged 77-fold, it's almost like he's acknowledging the escalating nature of the curse.
So it's not just that he's committed violence, but that he's been wounded by it too.
Exactly.
It deepens the tragedy. Like he's aware of the cycle, but can't escape it.
Yeah, and the video draws a parallel between Lamech and Cain, saying they both tried to build cities to establish order and stability in the world, but they can't escape that fundamental brokenness that stems from their violence.
It's almost like civilization itself is being built on this shaky foundation.
Yeah, it's a really thought-provoking idea.
But on the other hand, the video also talks about all these amazing innovations that come from Cain's line. Like, Tubal-Cain isn't just forging weapons. He's advancing metallurgy, creating tools that have the potential to benefit everyone.
Absolutely. The video doesn't present a purely negative picture of Cain's descendants.
Okay.
It acknowledges their ingenuity, their creativity, their drive to build and create. It's this constant tension, this struggle between light and darkness that keeps the narrative so compelling.
And that struggle is what makes us question, like, which side will win out in the end? Is humanity doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past? Or is there a way to break free?
That's the core question the video's wrestling with.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the video also gets into the environmental impact.
Oh, yeah.
It mentions the land becoming barren under Cain's descendants. Is that just a metaphor? Or is there like some kind of ecological message being woven in as well?
I think it's both. On one level, it's clearly symbolic of the spiritual barrenness that comes with sin.
Right.
That separation from God we talked about earlier. But you could also interpret it as a commentary on humanity's impact on the natural world.
So it's like if we're constantly at war with each other, we're also at war with nature. Our inner turmoil gets reflected in the world around us.
Exactly. And the video doesn't shy away from the fact that violence was escalating in the time leading up to the flood.
Right.
It describes this whole society spiraling out of control with people arming themselves, turning on each other, contributing to their own downfall.
They're creating their own apocalypse.
Yeah, it's a pretty bleak picture.
And then you have Noah, descendant of Seth, who represents a different path. It's almost like he's saying, hey guys, there's another way. We don't have to go down this path of self-destruction.
He's the voice of warning, the one who sees what's coming and offers a way out.
Right. But even Noah is caught in this web of family history.
Oh, definitely.
The video emphasizes his lineage, how he represents a different branch of humanity, untouched by Cain's direct curse.
Right. It's not just about Noah being a good guy. It's about him representing a different possibility, a different lineage, a different set of choices that humanity could make.
So it's about potential. Like humanity has the potential for both good and evil.
Exactly.
And the flood itself becomes this act of both judgment and mercy. It's a wiping of the slate, a chance for humanity to start fresh. But it's also a reminder of the terrible price that was paid for those past mistakes.
It's a powerful image of both destruction and renewal.
Yeah, a bittersweet ending for sure. There's hope for the future, but also this deep sense of loss and regret. And it all ties back to this one act of violence, Cain killing Abel.
Right. The video is making the point that actions have consequences not just for the individual, but for generations to come. And it's not just about punishment, but about the potential for redemption, the possibility of choosing a different path.
Speaking of choosing a different path, the video mentions this book called The Book of Jasher.
Oh, yeah.
And they use it to get some of those extra details about Lamech's life.
Right.
Like the whole hunting accident with Cain.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about this book? It's not exactly standard Sunday school fare, is it?
It's definitely not your typical Bible study material.
Okay.
The Book of Jasher is an ancient text not considered part of the biblical canon.
Right.
But it's been cited in Jewish folklore and tradition for centuries.
I see.
And it basically expands on certain biblical stories, adding layers of detail and interpretation.
So is it like ancient fan fiction?
In a way, yes. But it's fascinating to see how these extra biblical texts provide different perspectives on the stories we think we know.
Okay.
And this YouTube video uses those details to make some powerful points.
Like how Lamech accidentally kills Cain while they're hunting and then accidentally kills his own son Tubal-Cain in a fit of rage.
Right.
Talk about adding insult to injury.
Well, it's a whole other level of tragedy. And it really emphasizes the cyclical nature of violence, how it can spiral out of control even when there's no malicious intent.
Right.
It's like this inherited curse that keeps repeating itself, even among those who might be trying to break free.
And it all circles back to the theme of blindness, doesn't it?
Oh.
Cain is physically blind. But then Lamech, driven by fear and anger, is also blind to the consequences of his actions.
Exactly. The video draws this brilliant parallel between their situations.
Yeah.
Both are acting impulsively without truly seeing the impact of their choices. They're both trapped in this cycle of blindness and violence.
And even though Lamech didn't mean to kill Cain or Tubal-Cain, the video doesn't let him off the hook.
Right.
His wives, Ada and Zillah, they still hold him accountable. It's like they're saying intent doesn't erase the consequences.
It's a powerful message and one that's very relevant to the world we live in today.
For sure.
You know, we often focus on intent when talking about violence and injustice, but this video reminds us that accountability goes beyond that.
Right.
It's about taking responsibility for our actions and their impact on others, regardless of whether we meant to cause harm or not.
So it's not enough to just say, I didn't mean to.
Exactly. Actions have consequences, whether we intend them or not.
It's a tough lesson, but one that's worth considering, especially in a world where violence seems so pervasive and inevitable.
Right. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all the negativity, all the conflict. But this video, even with its dark and tragic elements, ultimately points toward a message of hope.
Okay, how so?
Well, it reminds us that we have choices that we can strive to break these cycles of violence, that redemption is possible.
And that's where Noah comes in.
Exactly.
He's presented as this beacon of hope, a testament to the fact that humanity doesn't have to be defined by its mistakes.
He represents the possibility of a fresh start, a new beginning built on justice and righteousness. And that's what makes this video so compelling.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from the darkness, but it ultimately leaves us with a glimmer of light, a sense that a better future is possible.
It's amazing how much depth and meaning they packed into this one YouTube video. It's taken us on quite a journey, from the origins of sin to the potential for redemption. But there's one final element I wanted to touch on, something that really blew my mind. Okay, so the video touches on this idea that, Cain's descendants, despite their innovations and skills, they seem to struggle with this instability. They're constantly on the move.
Yeah.
Never quite finding a lasting home.
Right.
It's like they're searching for something that they can't quite grasp. What do you think the video's getting at with this theme of restlessness?
Well, I think it's suggesting that their restlessness stems from that separation from God that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
They're trying to fill this spiritual void with worldly achievements, building cities, mastering crafts, accumulating possessions, but it's never enough.
So it's like they're trying to outrun their own inner turmoil,
Yeah.
but they can't escape it.
Yeah.
It keeps manifesting in different ways.
Exactly. And that restlessness, that inability to find true peace, becomes a recurring theme in their story.
Yeah.
It's like a shadow that follows them wherever they go.
And it contrasts sharply with Noah, right?
Oh, absolutely.
He's described as a righteous man chosen by God to survive the flood. It seems like he represents a different kind of stability,
Yeah.
a groundedness that Cain's descendants lack.
Yeah, the video definitely portrays Noah as a figure of hope.
Right.
A reminder that even amidst all that chaos and violence, there's a possibility for a fresh start.
Okay.
He embodies this idea of faith and obedience, a willingness to trust in a higher power.
But it's not just blind faith, right?
Yeah. No.
Noah still has to make a choice
Right.
to build the ark, to gather the animals,
Yeah.
to trust that God will guide him through the storm.
It's not passive. Noah takes action. He demonstrates his faith through his deeds.
Oh, okay, I see.
And that's a crucial point the video seems to be making.
What's that?
Redemption isn't just handed to us. We have to work for it. We have to choose it.
So would you say that choice is ultimately what separates Noah from Cain's line?
I think so. Yeah, they're both grappling with this legacy, this weight of history, but Noah chooses a different path. He chooses to break the cycle.
And that choice leads to the flood,
Right.
which the video presents as both a judgment and a cleansing. It wipes away the corruption, the violence, the sin that has consumed the world, but it also creates space for a new beginning.
Exactly. It's like hitting the reset button.
It's a pretty powerful image, this idea of washing away the old to make way for the new.
Yeah.
It speaks to this universal human desire for renewal, for second chances.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons this ancient story continues to resonate with us today. It speaks to those fundamental questions about good and evil choice and consequence, the struggle between our better angels and our darker impulses.
Right. So, what does it all mean?
Yeah.
Does knowing this backstory, this deeper dive into the legacy of Cain and his descendants, change how you see the story of Cain and Abel?
For me, it definitely adds layers of complexity and nuance. It challenges us to look beyond the surface, to consider the ripple effects of our choices, both good and bad.
Yeah.
And it ultimately leaves us with a sense of hope.
Okay.
A reminder that even in the face of immense darkness, there's always the possibility for redemption, for renewal, for a fresh start.
Wow, what a journey this has been.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground, from ancient texts to the fate of humanity, and it all started with this one simple YouTube video. Big thanks to you, our listener, for sending it in. It's been a truly fascinating deep dive.
It just goes to show that even the most familiar stories can hold hidden depths waiting to be explored.
Until next time, keep diving deep.